So now that I got my character clothing, I can start working on actually sculpting some of the clothing and fitting it, because I find using the sculpt tools are a much easier way of getting it to be the exact shapes that I'm looking for. And I don't want to apply all of it. I want to keep this solidify modifier on after the sculpting, because it's just providing my thickness. If you think about it, if there's a wrinkle on the outside of my shirt, there's a wrinkle on the inside of my shirt. This thickness should always be on. Solidify, we almost never apply when it comes to clothing, even when we're doing weight painting, things like that, because it's just so much easier to treat it as one solid piece. We are going to, however, apply a lot of these modifiers like mirror. I'm going to show you how we sculpt on primarily just this shirt, and we're gonna really take it from there. So I'm gonna go ahead and I can hide this jacket so we can just focus on the shirt here. I'm gonna take the mirror, I'm gonna apply it. So I just have the solidify, so I have this whole object, that way I have my left and right, and you can see under the character, all we have is just what we see visible. We don't waste any time. I could probably even get rid of more of this, but I wanna add a little bit extra just in case I need it. Let's go back to the sculpting tab. And I can collapse some of these because I don't really need them anymore. Join areas. And join areas, of course, you can leave them there if you want. But this is going to be just fine for me. Get my little clothing reference here. So with this in place, let's set to random so I can see some of the different colors. And I might choose a different matte cap. That's a nice one. Let's turn off. I can turn wireframe on or off. I think when I'm really working with low polys like this, I like to leave it on. But don't forget, we're going to want to use a multi-resolution modifier. And it already adds it for us at the beginning because solidify goes after it. We can subdivide this as much as we want. The solidify is really simple. It's basically just extruding it once. So we're going to leave it on afterwards, and the multi-res will be on first. But of course, before we subdivide anything, we need to really work with stuff. So let's start by really working out these sleeves and getting them that nice kind of puffy sleeve look. And as we know before, if I want to keep something mirrored or solid, I can use this lasso mask, and I'm going to just lasso this up so it stays separated, so that when I inflate to make this a nice puffy sleeve, maybe smooth some things out, it's going to keep this separated. Oh, and if I get off symmetry because I'm not on symmetry because I forgot to, I can always go into my tool menu here, into symmetry, and symmetrize it, which is a pretty fast way of doing it. Alt-M to clear my little mode here, hit G. And this is what's nice about this. If we applied, I'm going to save this really quick to show you why we don't apply. Let's say I applied this solidify. Don't need the dissimilate. Let's say I actually took the solidify and applied it. Well, now when I start to smooth and shape it, it's going to flatten and it's going to collapse things. It's going to lose the thickness in it. Sometimes I might be pulling and you know, pulling features and stuff out, and it's going to change and increase the thickness. But if I keep this solidify on, it's essentially still just a thin piece of geometry that I'm just viewing this way. So it works a lot better, especially when working with really thin objects. Let's get that multi-res back in there because I know I'm going to want it. And let's smooth some things out here and there. So we're just pulling this collar into shape, giving it that nice, fresh, piratey look. It's something, let me check my tool sets here. I like topology on because that means that it's going to respect what's actually connected to what, not what just is under the brush's influence. So that's going to be a lot nicer. Set this back. I feel like the collar here needs to be a little tighter on the back and a little wider in the front. So I'm just going to push this back. So I kind of do like a push and I smooth. I lift this up, and then I can really open up this collar. Great. So this is kind of what's giving me that look of the open pirate collar. I can always, you know, and I keep the body on so I know when I'm going too far and I may be pushing through the design of the character. So like that's a good example. I don't want to push that far. because it'll look like it's poking through the character's skin, which is not what I want. Now to add stuff like clothing and folds and stuff like that, of course, this is where sculpt tools and multi-resolution is going to come in handy. So with multi-resolution, let's subdivide it maybe a couple times like so. And, you know, I maybe run into a problem where it maybe oversimplifies something that I want to keep a crease or a seam on. So let's do this really quick. I'm going to show you how to add creases to this. So we're going to get rid of this multi-resolution. Let's go down to the lowest level. And I'm going to delete all the hires, so it's just this. And I'm going to show you how we do this in edit mode. If let's do viewport visibility off. And I want to just choose the areas that are going to get creased. So these are areas I want to stay really, really sharp. And then maybe where the collar is, like I want to maybe keep some of the areas under the collar stiff, maybe not, but I'm going to hit these edges. And I can turn on my mean crease. It's also Shift E, helps you control by dragging left and right, and 1 hits it to 1. Don't want it there, so I can just turn it off. And these creases are going to be nice because wherever I keep the creases when I subdivide, it's going to stay nice and sharp. So now when I subdivide with the creases, you'll see it keeps some of these areas sort of, it respects the strength of those creases, which is nice. My wireframe on and off. I don't know why it's not working in my sculpt mode. I might have to get rid of this. And let's turn it. Let's get my multi-resolution back on. Let's try this again. Okay, perfect. But you can see it's keeping the creases in these parts of the collar, which is exactly what I want, because I want it to have that stiffness there, but be able to smooth out and give me more resolution everywhere else. Great. So I don't need my wireframe on here. And now I'm just looking to fix up any of the issues I might be having. So let's go to sculpt mode and, you know, poke out anywhere that my model is sort of poking through. I can fix it. And I can leave solidify modifier on. It's going to be fine for this. I think this is the mode to live in edit mode. I guess it's not letting me, but that's fine. I can still do it then. So now what I can start doing is adding some folds, and I love to add clothing folds. They're really fun to do. The way I like to do it is a lot of draw sharp to add like where there'd be creases, especially in clothing. Think about places maybe around the collar that we might get a little folding. Anywhere I push it through, just pop it back up. And let's get these sleeves, because again, you know, nice puffy sleeves. We want the little frilly ruffles here. So maybe the regular draw, sculpt draw is great for clothing in opposite and forward because it sort of pulls up in a really even way. So I don't use this traditional sculpt draw for much of anything except for clothing, because I actually think it does folds really well, but it does everything else not super great, because you can see it gives me that nice roughly pattern. And then we can similarly think about there's sort of like edges where you see these are going to build up. On a sleeve, however, our creases run along it. So our any of our detail runs along our sleeve like so. So I might make a couple strokes out this way. And then wherever it bunches up like so, it tends to have this billowing. And sometimes it has this like cool zigzaggy pattern and things. You'll see a lot, especially on pants. You see a lot of that. I'm going to put it here in the sleeves though. We don't need too much. Remember, this is stylized character. And I can go back into my draw sharp to just really small and kind of cut back on any areas I want to be really sharp. Maybe hit up a couple stretching kind of creasing areas here and using it in both directions. Let's go back. And then let's go back into our object mode, and we can see it it's already applied the thickness to it to both sides. So there you go, not too bad. Let's go down and I'll show you a little bit now that we've done this. Okay, what do I do with that vest that I've added? Let's call this, make sure we add it. Vest, name your stuff as you go, it's always a good idea. Well, now that I've got the vest and I have an idea of where it goes, I can add it to sculpt mode, do the same thing I did, apply the mirror, keep on my solidify, add a multi-resolution before everything else. And I'm going to use my move tool, something I haven't shown you before is move its opposite, just pushes it out in the direction of the normal. Don't forget to turn on symmetry. So this helps me just sort of drag and it kind of pull out from the direction of the normal on the model. It's getting a little tight in here. Let me see this by itself because I need to simplify some of this. So what's my, go to edit mode, viewport visibility. Yeah, I wanna really get a nice line that runs through this whole thing. So I might just take this edge and think about like, how can I redirect this edge flow so it runs all around? And what I'm gonna do is combine all these together. Let's see, M to last. And now this edge loop runs all the way around it, which means it's gonna treat this as an even collar. So when I take in my sculpt mode, I try to smooth things out, it's not gonna be fighting with me. I accidentally, though, didn't do it on both sides, but again, hey, sculpt mode, that's what symmetrize is for. Great. And let's bring back the rest of my mesh. I'm just gonna pull it up and inflate, set things on top of the rest of the mesh. Pull it out. Remember, this is clothing sitting on top of clothing. Smooth it out a little bit. And since I'm not going to see things as detailed as like some of the creasing on the back, like, you know, this kind of stuff, it's going to be a lot flatter. So I can, you know, pull back and I don't need to see as much. This is supposed to be a thicker cloth. Turn on my edge smooth. I think I set the solidify. Since I've moved it out, I'm going to set the offset back to 0. And that should give me a good sense of it. And then it's the same kind of story for adding in where I do and I don't want things. So like just let it drape and hang down. Open up down at the bottom. And just yank around some of these edges until they give me the shape I want. Pull them in together, a little bit out. So as a last little bit here, because I think you're getting the impression, I'll show you a little bit of like what I would do. Now, I'm gonna add a belt the same kind of way I would add my eyebrows, and I'm actually gonna duplicate them because it has all the other modifiers I kind of want on them, like shrink wrap and things like that. Although I don't necessarily need shrink wrap, I could set this object to my shrink wrap mode, but I mostly just want the solidify and the thicken. So, and it's a nice simple model. So I'll Shift D, pull these down. I don't need most of this, so I don't need this subdivision or shrink wrap. I'm just gonna take this solidify, and then I'll take, well, I'll do a subdivision, then I'll do a solidify, and then I'll do a mirror. Let's do mirror, then subdivision, then solidify. With my mirror on, let's make sure clipping's set there. Let's move these points to the center. Again, I'm making my sash, and then I'll make the belt. And I'm building this the same way I would do the quad-based retopology of like the face and the eyebrows. Free to set this one, Control-I. Just get rid of the rest of this, faces. Because I want to get this to be the main bounds. So right about, I'm going to say right about here. And then this one comes right about there. And then we can just get it to go out and around the body. So I'm going to set it to face and do a little face snapping to help it more or less conform. And then I'll pull things out as I go. E, again, getting these to go around. The fewest number of edges I can get away with at first, and then I can always add more. And take my solidify here. set it to the outside, and that's A, and I'm gonna Alt S pushes them along their own normal. Add a division along the center, and this can more or less snap to help me conform to the model underneath. And then that can be sculpted. I can add a belt the exact same way. The other part of the sash, that's just the cloth hanging down. Well, I'm just going to do that as the same way I did these exactly. So I just Shift D. Same thing, solidify. Maybe I don't need the subdivision. I definitely don't need the mirror, but I'm going to leave the solidify on. And I'm just going to take this piece, Control I. I'm going to delete everything else. I can just take this piece from here. And let's see. Edit to, I'm just going to extrude it down as much as I think I need it. Add a couple divisions, like so. And I got my sash, which I can now sculpt into place. And I'm definitely going to need more resolution on this sash. I just like to start things really light, like so, and then I can add a multi-resolution modifier to it and give it the real deal. So let's take it here, add a multi-resolution, sculpt, subdivide. And let's change my subdivide mode. Right now, I subdivided it. Let's set it to linear. I'm gonna subdivide it once and twice. Just keeps it nice and flat, and then I can go down in my resolution in my sculpt mode. Just lets me pull things around. And create a nice shape for things. Go up, and as I start to go up, I can add that with my sculpt draw. Just add areas that are up and areas that are down. I might subdivide it 2 more times because you know, it's a pretty simple object, so it's not that much resolution. And anytime things start getting lumpy, this is what multi-resolution is great for. I just go down another couple levels, and then I can smooth things out, and then go back up and smooth things out. And then when I come out of object mode, it gives it some thickness that I can play with. So there you go, making clothing. If you've got good overall topology for things, it actually really speeds your process up and makes things easier for you. Of course, there's always more adjustments to be made, but you can see that it's already mostly we've done. This is why we do a lot of this work to make sure our topology and everything is really good, is because we're actually trying to front load our job as much as possible to make it simpler for us later. Otherwise, we're fighting with ourselves. And who needs that? So good luck. Keep sculpting on it, and looking forward to seeing what everyone does with their characters. I'll see you in the next one.